Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
I'm right in the middle of my day. It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon here.
It's 6 p.m. here.
Yes. And if this was next week, it would be 6 p.m. for me because I'm flying to London on Monday night, and I'm going to take a bus to Nottingham on Tuesday to give my illustrator a hug.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Lovely. Have you been to England before?
Yes, I've been a bunch of times to England on vacation and also to give hugs. So I've done that both. So this
Excellent.
is my annual trip to see my illustrator.
Lovely.
Yes.
That sounds brilliant. Well, I live in Wales,
Okay.
which is quite away from London.
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you. Yes.
Awesome. Is everybody here? Are we good to go?
I think so.
I think we are good to go. Yes.
All right. Have you guys have done this before, right?
No, I haven't.
I was interviewed, and this is the first time I'm ever interviewing somebody else. So this is, I'm very nervous,
It's super easy. You're just talking.
Yes,
It's just like having a conversation.
I know. No, I'm a lawyer. I know how to talk. So I'm a lawyer during the day, so that's not a problem. But
All right. Well,
yeah. So but I want to hear Rachel. That's the main thing. Well, Rachel has to talk. It's her work. She has to.
I can
Yeah.
talk. That's all right.
Yes.
I can talk forever. It's a problem.
I don't know. You'd be surprised because sometimes you get those interviews that you go and it's like pulling teeth,
Right.
and you'll ask somebody like, "What's your inspiration?" and they're just like, "Life," and you're like,
Yeah.
"Perfect."
Yeah.
That's what I wanted. So it's great that you can expand and things like that. So I know that you have a script you should be reading, dear sir. Did they send it to you?
A script?
Yeah, where you give the whole spiel about what Word Sleuth is and the awesome stuff they do with the Pass-the-Baton interviews.
Oh, no, I didn't get a script.
Okay, so I'm going to improvise. You guys ready?
Yes.
It's been a while since I've done this. Okay, so welcome to Word Sleuth, Pass-the-Baton Interviews. We do a fun little collection where we bounce from author to author. We get to know their writing process, their writing style. They share a little bit of information about what they write, where they get their inspiration from. I am C.R. Rice. I am the super host, which means I don't know. I guess I just watch you guys interview. It's going to be super fun. That'll be an experience. Let's see, what's the next piece? I normally have a friend of mine that tells me what to say. This will be fun. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Rachel Grosvenor, and I write mainly fantasy, but also kind of ghost stories, things really where you have a strong female main character ready to take down a patriarchal society. That's the one thing that all of my novels have in common.
That's necessary.
And I'm Steve Joseph, and I'm an attorney by day, but I started writing. First, I wrote a kid's book, The Last Surviving Dinosaur, the Tyrannosaurus, which is about the smallest, crankiest dinosaur, and who caused all the other dinosaurs to drop dead because she was so cranky. But then all humans evolved from this dinosaur, and that's why we're cranky. And then I've written 2 adult books, A Grown-Up Guide to Effective Crankiness, The Crankosaurus Method, and just recently, Cranky Superpowers, Life Lessons Learned from the Common Crankosaurus Chronicles. And I also have a book, a kids series based on a Snoodle, which runs on noodles. And you could go to Raminoli and you fill up your Snoodle with noodles and off you go. But my 3rd Snoodles book is coming out, Snoodles in Space, episode 2, The Zoodles Strike Back. And later this year, it'll be Snoodles in Space, Escape from Zoodletraz. So I do kids and adults, and I write the lawyer stuff too. I've written a lot of articles on law stuff, but that's my background.
That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have much more exciting lives than I do. So how about Rachel? I know you went ahead and you used our 6 fantastic words that that Word Sleuth sends out to expand everybody's vocabulary. So do you have that in front of you?
I do.
Do you want to go ahead and read that for us?
Me too. It's beautiful. It's great. She did a great job. It's just, she's a doctor of creative writing. It was amazing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I wrote it in second person, present tense, just for a bit of fun. And you know what? These are words, though, that I don't usually use. I will say that. So I hope that I pronounce them properly. We'll see. You awake from your slumber, your head thick with brumation. Not that you are a reptile, nothing of the sort, but then you would never deign to be so, would you? Precocious from a young age, you have always used banter to fend off your cantankerous personality. It isn't rare for you to experience a moment of sonder in the morning, and as you make your coffee, you watch it dimple and vibrate against the edges of the cup, the movement doing nothing to impact your lugubrious mood. That's the tricky word.
Lugubrious. It's lugubrious.
Yeah, there you go. I can't even say it. I can't even say it now. You've said it.
Yes, lugubrious.
No, I can't say it. I'll have to practice that later, and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Yeah. I like it. I thought it was great. That was one of the things that when I did my interview, I did mine, I think a couple months ago now. I had the same thing. I could not, for the life of me. I knew the words reading them, but the way that you say it in your head, and then when you try to actually like say it out loud, I couldn't get my mouth to move the right way because they choose the most crazy words that you're like, wait a second, I actually know that. I have heard that somewhere, but it doesn't quite. Yeah, you did much better than I did, so I give you huge props on that.
Thank you. I mean, to be honest, I've read in front of many people, and I can't always do the words. And sometimes you just have to say, do you know what? That's really hard for me today. Let's just move on.
I'm terrible at reading out loud. That's a fun little fact. I cannot read out loud. My brain reads faster than I can get my mouth to move. Mm-hmm. So then I always sound like I'm like slurring or half drunk if I try to read out loud. So I don't do that. So that's that's hard for me today.
Oh.
All right, Stephen, do you want to ask some questions?
I have questions.
Let's ask all the questions.
First of all, I'm honored. I never met a doctor of creative writing before. And I have to say that I think I'm going to go like lobby to have in like health plans coverage for like seeing a doctor of creative writing. So I think it's necessary, partly for mental health. Mm-hmm. And I actually, in my last book, Cranky Superpowers, I have a chapter called Can't Make This Stuff Up, Crankosaurus. And I try to turn things upside down. So you always think like I know as an attorney, I have a day like, wow, like it was crazy. You can't make that stuff up. But it's actually the opposite, that, it's your daily rut, your daily routine, the same thing, different day stuff. And like I woke up and I had a cup of coffee and I sat in front of the computer. It's like, oh, wow, you can't make that stuff up. Yes. So that's where you need to see a doctor of creative writing, so you could start making stuff up. Yeah. And that helps your mental health. So it should be in every in every health plan that we get to see a doctor of creative writing. So
I love it. Yeah. Why not? Yeah.
Yes, and people be a lot more healthier mentally. Mm-hmm. And a lot more creative, and to be a lot more fun, and we'll be doing all these weird word things all the time. Yeah. So that'll be really good. So anyway, how did you decide to become like a doctor of creative writing?
I've only ever wanted to do one thing, and that's write. So when I was a kid, it's all I ever wanted to do. Like when people would be like, "What do you want to be?" I want to be a writer. Until that time when I was like 11 and I saw Top Gun for the first time, and then I was like, "I want to be a fighter pilot," but that was like very brief. And then I went back to wanting to be a writer, and I just had a really supportive mom who was like, "Yeah, let's do it then." And so when it came to time to go to university, I wanted to do the things that I'd been obviously good at so far in my life, which was mainly history and English. Things that were narrative based were what I always excelled at school. So I went to do my BA in creative writing, my undergraduate degree, and then I took a few years off and I went back and did my MA. And then I went on to do a PhD in it because it was like the most fun I'd ever had. And I miss it all the time. I graduated in 2016 and I do it again in a heartbeat, but it is quite expensive.
Oh,
So,
wow. Well, it must be fun. It must be like, so like, and then how does that help your process? Like, what has that given you as, like you have to, you know, obviously I write, but I write in a weird way. I run and I write while I run. So I think it just gets written in my head.
yeah.
It's weird, but you have tools. You go to school and you learn. So how do you, like, you get the tools and you work on the tools and you sharpen the tools, and so you have good tools. So how does that process develop, going from like your bachelor's to your master's to a doctor?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I kind of liken doing creative writing degrees to learning art. Like you might have a natural talent for art, but you do need somebody to explain to you how to use the brushes and how to mix color and how to like give feedback to other people. So it's given me a lot of valuable things in terms of how to write a novel. How do I actually do that? How do I create a realistic character and all that kind of stuff? My undergraduate degree was very much, you know, we're going to look at every kind of form of writing. There was like travel writing, memoir, you know, it was short stories, it was fiction. My MA was more, we're focusing in now.
Mm-hmm.
And then my PhD was we're focusing in even more. So my PhD thesis was a 80,000 word novel and a 20,000 word critical thesis, essentially, where in which you kind of had to break new ground. So I proved that women's fiction is assumed to be autobiographical more than men's fiction on the whole, and made some like kind of, I compared my novel that I wrote for my PhD with some other literary fiction and talked about essentially women in the world of fiction. So that's what I did. And then when I left, I decided to take a break with what became my debut novel, The Finery.
Mm-hmm.
And that became kind of, that was something that I was taking a break with. I was like, oh, you know, I just want to write something that's fun. I mean, what it turned out to be was like, it's the story of a totalitarian government. I mean, and it sounds like that's hard to make fun, but actually it is a
It was
fun novel.
fun. Yes, I started reading it, and in talking about reading out loud, that is a fun book to read out loud.
Thank you.
Because the words, it's kind of like the person writing it, that's you, sound like you're having a lot
Yes.
of fun, like
And I
as you
won.
write it.
Yeah.
You're having a lot of fun, and just even like certain words, like just even in this the thing that you read, it plays. There's a lot of play with the words, or the kind of remarks, and it almost makes me want to like take it out and write it as a play, you know, just as, like take it like, because there's so much dialogue in there, and you could put like the little kind of things in the side to describe what's going on and make it as a play with the different characters, and it would work so well. It was a lot of fun. But I thought the writer because the main character is this 100-year-old woman. So I just, and you did it so well. I must imagine that you happen to be 100 years old, and you look great for 100 years old.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, Professor Wendeline Kripkott is 100. She's pushing 101. And she's a badass. She's a badass. And that comes from a lot of women in my life. And also the fact that the older I get, the more confident I am. So I don't know, I'll be 40 soon. And I am happier now to say what I think aloud than I ever was before. And every year I get more and more confident. So I was thinking about this before I wrote The Finery, and I was thinking, like, God, yeah, by the time I'm 100, I'll just say whatever the hell I like, and people can deal with it. And that's really where Wendeline came from. That feeling of, like, she's going to be a badass. And, like, my mom's 73, and she's a badass. And I do think that older people in general are largely ignored by society. And that's not the way it should be at all.
No, definitely not. I'm an older person, and I agree with you. I'm going to be 63 this year. And yes, like, for me, it's easier to say what I think and what I feel, and then I get crankier, with every year. So
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's fun. It's fun being old. Being old and a badass, yeah. So that's good. So you nailed it down.
Exactly. And also, I want to read about older people taking on these kind of situations. When you watch or read a lot of fantasy, it's always like the really young people taking on armies and stuff. When I was like 20, I was not able, I would not have been able to take on like a battle in any way. And I really think that we need to start seeing older people in fantastical situations because it's just more realistic. It just is more realistic that these people would have the skill sets to be able to take on these like bizarre, fantastical situations they're faced with.
Yeah, no, it's love. And then you have this wolf, of course, Wolf is a very fun character. Like, how did you decide coming up with a wolf? Not like, how about like a little pussy cat, but you came up with a wolf.
Yeah. Wolf is it's funny actually. I didn't have my dog before I wrote this. He's like a year and a half old now. But I sort of manifested my dog through Wolf, I think. He's very much the same personality. It's very strange. But Wolf came about because I was trying to think of what Wendeline needed. And she's a very proud woman. She doesn't feel like she actually needs anybody, including Wolf, to a certain extent. She doesn't really need him. She didn't choose him. He was given to her. But while he kind of doesn't help her in like a physical sense in the way that these caring wolves are supposed to, he does help her in an emotional sense. So I wanted to give her an outlet so that the reader could see that she's not just crotchety. She has also got other sides to her. And Wolf kind of enables her to get that out a little bit, to kind of be softer. And he also acts as a great sidekick as well. I mean, he essentially saves her life a few times. He's great. So.
Yeah. No, he's a fun character. And I saw online you wrote this while you were in New Zealand.
Yeah.
I don't think I could write in New Zealand. I think I would just like wander, like, oh wow, this is New Zealand. So how was that, writing in New Zealand?
I mean, it was the lockdown, so that's how I was able to do that. So yeah, me and my husband went to New Zealand on our honeymoon, at like what was possibly the worst time that we could have done that. And then the borders closed because New Zealand closed their borders like nobody else in the world did. So they closed them. That was it. No one was coming in. No one was going out. There were no flights. And so, we had to make some quick decisions. And we ended up there for 2 years. And I love New Zealand. The people are amazing. And I'm a huge Tolkien fan. So to be able to like go to Hobbiton and to like celebrate International Hobbit Day with other people who love Tolkien as much as me, was just a gift. And we spent lockdown, which was like 7 weeks in New Zealand, in like this little hut that we hired on Airbnb. And I just wrote The Finery and sat in the sunshine. And it was bizarre. And in retrospect, it was amazing. At the time, it was very difficult. So I was really focused on like creating a world that I actually just wanted to step into, because the reality of life was so hard. I was like, my family are on the other side of the world, and we're in the pandemic suddenly, and I can't get to them. So if anything happens, I'm stuck. And that really scared me. And that drove me to write, I think, because I was trying to escape. And that's, during the pandemic, sales of fantasy went up by like 20%. And actually, I think the reason for that is because a lot of people were feeling that same desire to escape and step into a world so different from our own, because what was happening was horrific. So, yeah.
So let's say, okay, if there was never the pandemic and you go on your honeymoon in New Zealand, beautiful, you go see the Hobbit land and all that, you come back, would The Finery still have been written, or did that kind of like being stuck in New Zealand, but for I have The Finery?
Yeah, good question. I actually think it would still have been written, but I think it would have been a very different story. Because a lot of what was inspiring me at the time was like I was watching the way that different governments were behaving. This is like it's a fantastical novel about tyranny, but everything that happens that the government does in this novel is based on real things that have happened. Things that have happened in the UK, in Cambodia, in Vietnam, and also based on the way that governments were behaving. So there was in one country the government were letting women out one evening, men out the next evening, and they were on a curfew. Like that was going to help a pandemic situation. Like there was lots of bizarre things happening.
Female germs one day, and then the male germs
very
next. Yeah, it's just
strange things were happening.
And they probably had doctors that's weird. That is a strange thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and the way that people were responding were different too. So there were riots in some countries about the measures that the government were putting on. Not in New Zealand. So New Zealand calls the people who live in New Zealand as very much, we're a family of 5 million. There's not that many people who live in New Zealand. And because of that kind of constant, we're a family of 5 million, we're a family of 5 million, every time the Prime Minister Jacinda spoke to the newspapers and things, we did get that feeling of like, we're in this together. And it felt different. It did feel different. And because of that, we had a different experience because COVID was eradicated really quickly. So when other countries had COVID, New Zealand didn't. And that was weird. And so like watching the governments and the way that people were behaving in other countries while not having that experience myself, it was like a delayed experience in New Zealand. It was very strange as well. And all of that was fed into the book. Yeah, so it was an unusual feeling.
Wow. It's a really terrific book. I want to get off the phone soon and I can start reading it more. Now, actually, I have work to do, but I'll be flying to England and I'll get to read it on the plane. So that'll be good. So you're also a writing coach.
Yeah.
And how does that process work? How does because you're probably taking first of all, who are the people who will seek out a writing coach? Yeah. And how does that process work? I guess you don't know the person coming to you, why they're coming to you, what they want to accomplish. I guess I would have all these questions if I was a writing coach. You know, just like where are we going to start, and what do you want to get to it? So how does that all work?
Yeah, so everybody want something different, really. So everyone comes to me at different stages in the novel, but it can basically be boiled down to you come to me at the beginning when you've got an idea, but you're not sure how to write a novel. Or you come to me in the middle, because we all know writing a novel sucks in the middle. Like, it gets really hard to push through and to keep motivating yourself to move forward. Or you come to me at the end and you've got like a full draft, but you're not sure how to make it better. So essentially, I work with people wherever they are in the process, and we can figure out how to move forward from there. I have a writing coach who I speak to every couple of weeks, and I use her purely for mindset stuff. You know, this is how much I've written this week. This is how much I wanted to write. What's been holding me back? Can I run this idea past you, and let's kind of figure out what it is that I actually want to say in this novel? You know, so that's what people use me for as well. Like, a lot of it is I really want to get from A to B, but I can't figure out the middle bit. And something amazing happens when someone holds space for you for like an hour, where all they're doing is asking you questions about your process, your work, and your mindset, where actually you can unravel things that you didn't even know were in your mind. And it's incredible. So I mean, coaching is just amazing. And I love helping other people get to that point as well, of like, that's what it is, a realization moment. It's like a gorgeous moment to share with people. And you also get that thing where you both get goosebumps. I love that. So yeah, it's really fun. And writers all over the world come to me. Most of my clients are American, funnily enough. I'm not sure why that is, but yeah, might be
Americans are procrastinators.
okay.
Yeah,
That's why.
no, it's just, yeah, we don't know how to write at all, and you know, so that's why we need help. That's why we need it in our healthcare plan. You know, writing a doctor, go see the doctor. You know, at least twice a year. You know, should be covered. You know, and that would make us a lot better. But then, of course, we would have to be able to go to see doctors in England. That would be the big thing.
Yeah.
Of course. Yes. So that's important. So with the writing, so they come in different process. Do they ask you for ideas, or like where do I go from here, or just or do you have to, or you're just going to try to get them to come up with the ideas?
Both, really. We work together to develop ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I also do developmental edits and editing for people. So in that sense, you're very much reading as a reader and an editor and a writer. And, you know, it might be that sometimes I'm reading something and I really think it's going to go a certain way, and it doesn't. And in that sense, I'll definitely say, oh, I really thought it was going here, but you went here. Like, let's talk about that. And kind of managing a reader's expectations and whether or not you want it to be a shock. So in that sense, I'll come up with ideas, but we do work together in terms of, you know, what they want to create.
Yeah, but you don't impose like oh, it needs this 100-year-old woman. That's what it's missing. You put in a 100-year-old woman, and then your book will be like a lot better. So you don't.
No, I don't do that. No.
You know, so okay, so if they have like the 20-year-old who's taking on the world, and you're just going to go with it. You're not going to say, 20. When I was 20, I couldn't do it. But you'll just go with it and say, oh yeah, all right, 20-year-old.
Well, I will. If it's realistic,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah. If it's realistic. Because even fantasy has to be realistic to a certain degree. It's got to be believable in that world.
Yes, yes. So yeah, that's exciting writing. Like, it must be. I know when I'm writing a story, mostly with the kids' stories, when it's fantasy and creating a world. And now I'm up to like this fourth book in this series, and the world is developing and developing. There's more characters, and so with the finery, is there a follow-up to the finery that you're just going to expand this world? And
There isn't currently. There isn't currently. Quite a few people have said to me, like, oh, you've obviously ended the novel in a way that, you know, there could be a sequel. And I'm like, I never thought that myself until people told me that. And I'm currently writing my sixth novel. The Finery is my second. So I have other books in the works that are in various processes of querying, editing, being kind of created, and none of them are in the same world as the Finery.
Oh, so they're just different kind of fantasy stories and
Yeah, they're kind of varying levels of fantastical realism, really. Yeah.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
And any hints or you want to share? Just
Yeah, well, at the moment I'm querying companion novels. So they're kind of standalone, but they're set in the same world. You can read, it doesn't matter which one you would read first. That's The Birth of Ida and The Dead Worth Shame. They're Wild West, fantastical ghost stories. I always write in like bizarre niche genres that nobody asked for. So,
Wild West fantasy. So, like, what kind of characters would be in the Wild West fantasy?
well, in The Birth of Ida, the main character is a woman called Ida Vale, who is essentially trying to avenge her father's death. And The Dead Worth Shame is the tale of what was a tertiary character in The Birth of Ida, who I just loved. I was just like, I think you're brilliant. So I really wanted to tell her story. So that's The Dead Worth Shame is about her becoming who she is, essentially. It's a ghost story, by and large. Yeah. And at the moment, I am editing this book, which is The Tides of Spring. That is something that I'm going to finish editing, goes to an editor in March. So not got long to get that kind of next draft underway. Yeah. So I've kind of got different things in the works, but yeah.
So, and when you write a book, I mean, you edit your own book and you have another editor.
Mm-hmm.
And let me ask this question. So when you get the edits back from the editor, and you look at it, it's like, what's like, is it usually like, wow, I missed that and whatever, or it's like, no, I have to go back to my stuff, or how does that work? Because I'm talking to a doctor, so me, it's like, oh, I'm looking at it, and I actually have an editor in England through my illustrator in Nottingham. So she's editing on like using British English.
Okay.
And then I have to convert it back to American English, which is a problem, but that's my thing. But so how does that work with a professional editor, doctor who gets her own stuff edited, and you're a professional editor, and I'm sure you have to trust your stuff with another professional editor, who may or may not be a doctor. So how does that work? Oh, she is a doctor.
She is.
Okay, good.
But I mean, even if she wasn't, I've had other editors edit my work who aren't, and actually, it's to do with a lot of stuff. Sometimes they suggest I change something, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. I totally missed that, or yeah, you're right. That narrative isn't flowing there at all. But it's really hard to see your own work. It's almost impossible, I think, to see your own work as a complete reader sometimes. And you need somebody to come in and say, this needs to be much clearer, or this isn't driving the narrative forward. I mean, in The Finery, when that was sent to the developmental editor, I had written like a 2,000 word thing that I loved writing, and I still love it. But it was literally about Gwendoline eating like a sandwich. It was genuinely nothing that was. I think
I want to know about that. I would love to read about a sandwich being eaten.
It was an amazing sandwich, and I went to town on explaining like the different elements. And I loved it, but also the editor was like, this really loses tension and doesn't drive the narrative forward. And although it's quite sweet, like it's not relevant. And I was like, yeah, you're right, though. You're totally right. Like, it's just how it is, you know? So. Yeah.
And I have to ask this question because I write children's books as well. And I read your stuff. I'm reading The Finery, and I'm reading this the play of words, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, Rachel would be so great at writing a children's book. So have you ever thought about a children's illustrated kind of book for, just again, fantastical, sort of, kind of weird characters and.
Yeah, that would be fun. I've written like children's short stories. Um, they're actually available online on Storyberries, which is a really lovely website it like publishes like nighttime stories for kids of all ages. It's a really great little website. And have told stories to my nieces and things. I'd love to write a children's book one day. Yeah. Um, my eldest niece is 7, and I wrote a short story for her about a dragon coming to town. So, yeah.
That's fun. The dragon's coming to town. Oh, like fire-breathing dragon,
He's a
or
very
uh,
kind dragon who was just in a bit of a mood because he had a sore tooth.
oh, that's not good. Yeah, no, it's just no. But I'm sure you had the story where the sore tooth got better.
Oh yeah.
It's just okay, good. Yeah, that's good. But I'm just saying, like the best thing. I guess it's fun collaborating as a writing coach. Uh, I could tell you from my experience with an illustrator, like I'm writing a story, and then it goes into story blocks, and I describe at least my vision, what I would like to see in the pictures, and then over the course of the year, my illustrator will send me some pictures, and it's like Christmas every other week. You open it up. Oh, he did that. That's amazing. Or maybe like, oh, he could do a little more of this or whatever. But it's always like fun, and it's a back and forth and collaborating, and the world that you have in your head, as much as you're writing like The Finery, and here's this story in your head, and you have the pictures and the visions and all that stuff in your head, and then somebody's drawing it out for you. There you sing, oh yeah, exactly, and
Yeah.
that's where you get that with a kid's book when you're writing, again, like these creating these worlds in that sort of genre. So
Yeah, I bet that's amazing. I mean, I've paid for illustrators to draw like Wendoline and stuff, just for my own pleasure, not for anything. Just because it's fun.
yeah,
But yeah, I totally understand that. It's lovely seeing something that you have created come to life.
yes. So yeah, it's very, very exciting. So wow, this. I'm not sure if I have any more questions. This is so fascinating talking to a real doctor. Uh, so like how do you like divvy up your time between writing coach, people
Nice.
around the world reaching out to you for guidance and working on stuff, and then your own
Yeah.
writing, and then
It,
just hang out with other doctors at the pub.
it's you know what? It's something that I talk to my writing coach about probably every other week. It's really challenging. It's really challenging to balance um, writing with your life. It's something that I talk to most writers about, actually. I think we all find it hard to balance writing with our lives because we all have like family responsibilities. I've got to walk the dog. I've got to do this. It would be great if I could take an hour to write this evening as well. Do you know what I mean? It's just hard, isn't it, to squeeze everything in? And I, especially once you are past that really fun bit of writing, where you're like beginning a story and like you're motivated and you're really excited to get back to the page. That's the struggle. And when people say like everybody has a story inside them, that's true, but not everybody has the ability to write a story, because actually what it takes is that pure perseverance of showing up day after day after day to try and create something, that's the hard bit. So it's a constant struggle, but I use like time blocking methods to do it basically.
You just stick out some time. And do you ever like sit there and when the time blocking and then nothing shows up, and then another day where it's like you're puking out like words
Oh,
just
absolutely.
coming out?
Yeah, sometimes like within an hour I can write. I think my best word count in an hour was like 2,000 words. And other times I'll write like 200 words and I'll just be like, that was the hardest 200 words I've ever had to write. Yeah.
I
So,
like when I told you, I write like when I run, and literally like I have an idea in my head, and then I have a character in my head, and then what happens after that, the characters might start talking, and I don't have to do anything. I just watch them start having a conversation, and it's like, okay, it's just like I'm enjoying the show.
That's awesome.
So that's when they get back, I start writing, and the funny thing with the kid books, my illustrator loves to draw them. So I say, oh, you have to do another one. And I go, no, there's nothing I've done. I can't write another book unless it's going to be as good or better. And then the next day, the day before when I had nothing, all of a sudden then something pops in my head.
Yeah.
so Rachel, as we're breaching that 45-minute line, what are you doing? What is your next project as far as what you're hoping to get published? Why don't you tell everybody where to find your stuff, where to follow you, the best place to get all of the information that is Dr. Rachel?
Yeah, so Rachel Grosvenor Author is my handle on most things. And the Finery is out now, and you can get it on Amazon, like at Barnes and Noble, Waterstones, basically wherever you're based, you'll be able to find it in a bookshop. And I am hoping that The Birth of Ida will come out in the next few years, but I'm also working on something that I'm going to self-publish as well.
Oh. So do you have a newsletter? Can people sign up for your newsletter and maybe get little tidbits?
Yeah, I do have a newsletter. It goes out every week. So you can sign up at my website, which is rachelgrosvenorauthor.com. And when you sign up, you get some like free workbooks as well. So.
Ooh, wonderful. Well, Miss Rachel, it has been lovely hearing about all your stories and being trapped in New Zealand for 2 years. Trapped is a giant, like, not really. But it was lovely talking with you and with Stephen. I wish you guys all the best in your writing futures. And maybe we'll all run into each other again in another interview and share other fun little stories and what we've been up to.
Awesome.
So I'll see you guys later.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.